Last night's debate was chock full of contentious exchanges. For the first time, we heard John McCain utter the name Bill Ayers in front of Barack Obama. Watch.
Yeah, real quick. Mr. Ayers, I don't care about an old washed-up terrorist, but as Senator Clinton said in her debates with you, we need to know the full extent of that relationship.
And in fact, Mr. Ayers has become the centerpiece of Senator McCain's campaign over the last 2 or 3 weeks. This has been their primary focus. So let's get the record straight. Bill Ayers is a professor of education in Chicago. Mr. Ayers is not involved in my campaign. He has never been involved in this campaign, and he will not advise me in the White House. So that's Mr. Ayers.
Tucker Bounds is the national spokesman for the McCain campaign. Tucker, good to see you. I know that you're a stickler for accuracy, so let's do a couple house cleaning things here. Last night, John McCain said that Colombia was the largest agricultural importer of U.S. products. It's actually Canada. At one point, he said that Barack Obama voted against John Roberts and Stephen Briar. I think he meant to say Samuel Elito. You acknowledge that those were mistakes?
Yeah, he misspoke a couple times in the course of an hour-and-a-half long debate. I think that's to be expected. But misspeaking is completely different from misleading, which is exactly what Barack Obama did in those statements that you just mentioned before about Bill Ayers. He was talking about him as being, someone that has not been associated with him and his campaign and wouldn't advise him in the White House. Well, that may be all well and good, but that doesn't speak to the real relationship and the associations that he's been questioned by the media about and by our campaign about. So important distinctions to make in what voters really see in these debates. And I think they'd prefer to see a candidate maybe misspeak once or twice as opposed to completely mislead them about the vetting process that ultimately is our presidential election.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, Obama did misspeak, and we're going to get at some of that with his spokesman later. But on this issue, in terms of Ayers, what is the relationship that concerns you? I mean, what specific evidence do you have that Barack Obama is misleading people in how he describes his connection to this guy?
Well, there are a couple of things there, David. There's the fact that he wasn't truthful at the very beginnings. He just called him just a guy from his neighborhood. We now know, after 2,000 words in the New York Times, hundreds of words in the Wall Street Journal, lots of network coverage, that of course that's not the case. These are people that have been affiliated for a decade. Barack Obama has known him from the very beginnings of his political career when he went there to be introduced to the liberal elite in Chicago and launch his political career. So ultimately, it's a difference between his record, his relationship with unrepentant terrorist Bill Ayers, and the actual rhetoric that he uses, which is he's just a guy from my neighborhood, which is just like when he talks about his economic policy and says, I'm a tax cutter, when actually he has a record of raising taxes and he proposes increasing taxes. That's the disconnect we're focusing on.
But Tucker, isn't this also a problem then for all those Republicans who are friends with Bill Ayers, for the Walter Annenburgs, for all the Republicans who are on that board who have also spent some time in his presence?
Well, David, I hate to say it, I will concede this point. If they're running for president, it may be a problem for them. Barack Obama is running for president of the United States.
All right, let's run a clip. Here's John McCain from part of his speech today. Watch.
I thought I did pretty well. The real winner last night was Joe the plumber. Joe's the man.
Well, Joe may be the man, but Tucker, Joe admitted to ABC News today that he actually is not going to make more than $200,000 in his business. And wouldn't that mean then that under Obama's plan he will actually not pay higher taxes, as John McCain alleged last night?
Well, no, what he was spending, we can try and put the paste back in the tube here, but when he was talking to Barack Obama told Joe the plumber directly to his face that yes, if these truths were to play themselves out, he would get a tax increase. That is where Joe the plumber and Joe plumbers all across America should know that there is a face that exists to the tax increases that Barack Obama wants to put on the American people.
Tucker, the average plumber in America makes something like $47,000, and the point is that sure, if any plumber in America starts a business and is making more than $200,000, the point is yes, under Barack Obama's plan, plan, they will see a tax increase. If they're making less than $200,000, then their taxes will go down. That's the point, isn't it?
No, David, we're missing the point altogether here, which is that there are hundreds of thousands of small businesses. That is the one sector that's showing growth and vitality in the American economy. The last thing that you would ever do, the last thing any respectable economist would ever suggest is that you layer on a malaise of tax increases on the one vital growth sector in the American economy.
But that's a different issue. I mean, the issue,
no,
sure,
it's
I think
the
a lot of
same
people
issue,
might agree.
David. It's the exact same issue.
No, it's not.
We're talking about raising taxes on small businesses. Joe the Plumber is the face
but Tucker, you're
of
talking about
enormous gap in the Barack Obama economic policy, which is in essence a tax increase on small businesses, which grow jobs. That's what we need right now.
Tucker, it's a tax increase for small businesses making more than $200,000. Now, you may have a valid point that the way to grow an economy is not to raise taxes on anybody. Yes. But again, when somebody says that, well, Barack Obama is going to raise your taxes and you're making less than $200,000, that's not true.
No, it is untrue when you go on the campaign trail and say, I'm a tax cutter, when in fact you raise taxes. Well, that is untrue.
Right, well,
that is what Barack Obama says. I'm here to tell the truth.
All right, Tucker Bounce from the McCain campaign. Always a pleasure having you on, Tucker.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on today.
David.